Thank you for watching Dro TV. Welcome back to the CannaBiz show. Our guest today is Rick Anstiss, aka Mr Fungi. And Rick, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting me on. I always enjoy conversation with you, and I look forward to this.
Yes, you can go check out Rick's episode of My First Time. We'll have that link down below. So this is, I guess, round two, we'll call it. Rick, you're a caregiver, an activist. You're a part of Big Cloud Farms, Michigan Weedsters, Hazy Holes, Cannabis. You do a lot of golf outings. You're also the co-host of the To Be Completely Blunt podcast. Can you tell us what made you so passionate about cannabis and how you got into activism?
Well, the passion comes from the plant and the symbiotic relationship you create with it once you start growing it and administering it and utilizing it as medicine. So that's just like a passion that just is always with everybody, I think, especially if you grow. But the activism came about in 2021. Rick Thompson introduced me to Ryan Bringles, and that was in September. And Rick Thompson had noticed me coming up to the Capitol and taking an interest, and blended me with Ryan, and we started Michigan Weedsters with Amy Carter and Latricia Madsen and Joe Sullivan. So all of us kind of started that last year and got things going with the dinner we held for the senators and House representatives, kind of an educational dinner to inform them of things. And we had held some rallies, and then obviously lobbied to the House representatives about the current bills at the time, protesting, pushing back against them. So we had success with that last year in a defensive mode. And this year it's going to be a little bit more proactive, and we're going to try and come at them and try and get the right structure we need in the state for the caregiver program, specifically and mainly, and recreational needs, worked out too. So it's an emerging thing, so it takes time.
Sure.
But I greatly found a passion once I started seeing the bills that were coming against the caregivers. So first and foremost, this plant helps people. So as soon as they start to minimize that, it's downhill from there. So last year we were really on the defensive to make sure that they didn't minimize it, which they didn't. But this year we're going to try and solidify it and keep it in a safe place permanent.
Okay. So here in Florida, we only have medicinal legalized. We're still trying to get recreation on the ballot, I think, for 2024. And we recently interviewed somebody in North Carolina where they have no program. What's the best route for someone to start if they are politically active and they want to make a difference? What would you suggest is the best way to start?
Well, looking at how your state government is operating, there's this X amount of states that allow petition-based initiatives, and that starts at the voter level and the citizens, and they create a petition and they get those signatures required, and they get it on a preliminary vote, and then so on and so forth. That's how it happened in Michigan. That's one way, and if your state doesn't operate in that fashion, similar to North Carolina, I would say reach out to your state representatives, because those people are the ones who are representing your district. And if you voted them in and they're speaking for you, and you have something to be said, they should be listening. So that can, I think, with some of these new classes of leadership coming into different House representative positions and senator positions, we will have a change in mindset. So I would encourage states like North Carolina and things like that to get a hold of your local government first, and see what they can do. If you can't create a petition and citizen-based initiative.
So some of the issues you're dealing with in Michigan is, at this point, it's legal, medicinal, recreational. Now it's a matter of overregulation, right? That's kind of what you're dealing with in the state of Michigan right now.
Yeah, and misregulation as well, a little of both. So we have a sector of government overseeing the recreational side of things in the state, and now it looks like that they're going to encompass the medical side under that as well. Which the medical side was never set up in that fashion. It was of the people for the people, and it's been operating for 13, 14 years now without anything, operating really well, helping tons of people. We have 250,000 patients and caregivers in the state of Michigan, and it's helping a lot of people. So it's operating just fine. And then you look at the medical side where the state took over and created a medical program. It's doing nothing. There's nobody that's growing medical because there's no profit in it. They're all growing recreationally, and for their dispensaries that are recreational. The only ones taking care of the patients is the caregivers here in Michigan with their 5 patients. So hoping in the new year we see something that solidifies the caregiver program, possibly gives them the medical side of things because that's who's handling things, and or allowing the caregiver market to come into the recreational market, licensed market in the sense of products, because it's minimizing the entrepreneurship, it's minimizing the access to quality. Most of these big grows don't grow quality, and we've had state issues with testing. I forget exactly how many pounds, 200 some million pounds was recalled in the state last year.
Wow.
So they found a ruling to remediate all that product, and then they put it back on the shelves. So we got some issues to work out. And with that remediation, they didn't sticker anything, which I would assume that, hey, if you got a remediated product, you should at least say that this has been remediated due to fungal or a mold or whatever. But, again, at a medicinal level, somebody ought to know that before they purchase it. So,
right.
Yeah, lots of wildness.
Right. And this is where the Michigan Weedsters have kind of excelled with helping, I guess, shape some of this reform.
Yeah, a lot of people in the state of Michigan have stepped up. There's quite a few little groups throughout the state that have shown up in Lansing and fought the same fight that everybody is really, pushing back. I think collectively we were able to stop what there was five total bills, and we stopped 4 of them last year from coming through. And the ones that were coming through were going to minimize the plant count for the patient and caregiver, minimize the amount of patients that the caregiver could hold. None of those bills really made a whole lot of sense. All it was is minimizing the program enough for big corporate to take it over down the road is what those bills were set up for. So again, moving forward, hopefully we can find a place where it's working now with all the caregivers that we have, and them operating the way they do. They just need different options and opportunities to prosper and do better. And we're fighting big corporate for that opportunity, sadly, even on our own voted in initiative. So it's one of those things. Be careful, Florida.
Yeah, seriously. I was in Massachusetts before I moved down here, and that's like what it was, you could tell that there were 2 dispensaries and then 5, and it was really like just helping the bigger guys kind of get their foothold in on the market. And then as the smaller guys came in, it kind of consolidated its way up. But I guess it's a necessary evil that, maybe not necessary, but at this point, the way, the government's set up, it's corporations are kind of hand and fist with the government. So,
yeah. But, with, again, for Michigan particularly, we feel differently as citizens because we created it. We did all the 350,000 signatures needed to get it on the ballot, and then voted it in 56% or 63% recreational. I forget those numbers exactly, but either way, it was over, what was needed to vote it in. So we feel like it's ours. It's government wasn't giving it to us, and right. We had to push them and put our arm against their throat until we got it right, and we got it. And then now the government's starting to manipulate it. So that's why Weedsters is there, and some of these other groups throughout Michigan and Lansing pushing back and standing strong for the people. So doing well so far. Well, I think this year again will be a promising one to our benefit.
That's great. Yeah, we were recently on the Medical Mondays podcast, and we've interviewed many people from Michigan, and they bring up the Michigan Weedsters. So I'd like to stay on the Weedsters for a minute. Can you talk about its inception and kind of like the ongoing work, how you bring people on, how you go about, this type of activism?
Well, we have a great person in Latricia Matson. She does all this crazy analytic work. She can get to the numbers, and she can get to the truth, and she can get through the things needed to find the files that are available to us as citizens. But you don't always know how or where to go find those things. And she's on Michigan.org and all the places where those things are, and able to pull those up and look at those things, and really work through some of the problems and foresee things. So she's a great benefit. And then of course she does all of our online things. So our Facebook and our Instagram is all done by her, and she does all the artwork and the posts and things. And what we've been trying to do is get everybody to become a Michigan Weedster. And if you're not a patient or a caregiver and you want to be, we're trying to get people to get those numbers up, come on board and get your patient card. If you want to be a caregiver, get your caregiver card. And we're working with telehealth currently to kind of expedite that. So it's about $140 statewide usually to get your card. But with telehealth, they're helping us out and giving it out for $90, which is the state lowest thing. It just pays the fees and everything, which is great. You have a card that gives you 2 years of a medical patient or a caregiver. And that gives you also access to 2 social clubs. We have Vehicle City Social Club and the Genesee County Compassion Care Club. And those are 7 days a week, open to patients and caregivers to work through the 2016 amendment for our medical law, which allows caregivers and patients to come together in a compassion care style and trade and work with their medicine. So if you're a caregiver, I'm a caregiver, I have 3 pounds of product that you need to make RSO for your patient, we can trade or do whatever that looks like to make that happen for your patient. So, or if the patient is looking for something, and can come to these places, they can achieve what they're looking for.
That's great.
Yeah.
not, I don't think it's necessarily off topic, but we were set up at the Florida Cannabis Festival 2 months ago. 20,000 people, open air, people selling mushrooms, weed. It was a great time, the way it should be, right? And there was no fights, no crime, nothing. Dogs, families, everyone just having a good time. And we met lots of people from Michigan, and I brought up your name, and they said, "Oh yeah, we know Mr. Fungi." So I'm curious, Rick, as all the things that you do, what's a typical day like for you? Tell us about like what you did today, for example.
Today, I interviewed Michael Fang on my podcast
Okay.
at 2 o'clock. And then I guess first and foremost, I woke up and watched the children when my wife owns a cleaning business, and she was out doing her work, and then I watched the kids. And amongst that, yeah, I'm always on my phone. Spoke with Tommy Chong's people today and yesterday about some things coming possibly to Michigan here in the future, and talked to the golf course today about a spring outing that I'm holding with the Great Lakes Expungement Program. We're going to try and raise some money for them and another company up here called Redemption, who has the Last Heroes Project, which helps prisoners project. I might have that wrong. Sorry, but what they do is they help get prisoners that are currently incarcerated for just cannabis out of prison. And so far, a gentleman by Michael Thompson, name of Michael Thompson, and I think one other have been released.
Okay.
So in their recreational company, and they raise these money and efforts for that cause, which is the type of give back things that we need the recreational companies to do. We also have a company here locally in Niles, Michigan, called GreenStem, and their give back program is utterly amazing. How they've given back to the community and actually their workers. So there's some good examples we have here in Michigan of recreational side of things. They're not all corporate monsters. So that's promising as well. But yeah, as far as a typical day is running around and organizing different things. Currently, we're working on. I talked to a lot of lawyers. I talked to the attorney general's office quite a bit, and my 2 state local representatives. But yeah, it's nonstop. You just network, and then once you make those connections, you keep them going. Mendo Dope, I interviewed them the other day for my podcast. We have a song coming out, or a track coming out pretty soon, which will be really impactful because of how those guys write lyrics and do music. They really expressed what I was looking for really well. So I'm hoping that that'll have a nice impact this year on the community and everyone that hears it. So yeah, busy days always.
Yeah, I can imagine. As a highly motivated individual myself, I'm always curious, especially somebody that's got all the stuff going on that you do, just what a typical day is like. So yeah. Thanks for sharing that, because I'm sure lots of people out there are curious how it all gets done. It's not all happens in one day, but
yeah, it doesn't happen all in one day. And like I said, I'm writing a chapter for a book, Courage in Cannabis as well. So it's all little pieces, and you find it fits in throughout the day. And I don't always have a schedule, but sometimes things are scheduled, but it works out. We just keep grinding, and not a lot of sleep, but quite a bit of pot involved.
I should hope so.
Hey everybody, I want to quickly mention Food Forest Abundance. Food Forest Abundance is a great way to create your own self-sustaining food forest and naturally occurring ecosystem that's commonly found in nature, but designed specifically for you. Through multiple layers of trees, shrubs, herbs, vines, rhizomes, mushrooms, and perennial vegetables, You can become your own supply chain without the typical maintenance required of a garden. From small spaces to large areas, both urban and suburban, Food Forest Abundance wants us to get back to our roots in nature by engaging with our food production in a meaningful way. For more information, click on the link in the description below and start your journey today. Okay, let's get back to today's episode.
All right, so let's talk Big Cloud Farms. Can you tell us a little bit about that company, your involvement, and what you guys got going on?
Yeah, Big Cloud. This last year, Big Cloud Farms was a collective of Dallas, Laura, Tyler, and a whole slurry of people in the local community that we just all came together and created an event space. And it worked out really well. We were able to hold 5 separate events last year. But we held 5 events. We like the camping style event because that's where the culture lies. You know, you think about the movement across America from the 60s to now, where you found and heard and ever saw any accentuation of the movement was within the music festival culture and kind of carny culture and gypsy cultures, that traveling vibe of people, right? Bikers and things like that.
Sure.
So we wanted, and most of those things tended to be like a weekend type thing, the things that were held here in back in the 90s at Rainbow Farm, that kind of style of all weekend camping with music and people just enjoying life in themselves. But with that came lots of activism, and it brought lots of speakers and educational things because there was a movement to get it legalized.
Right.
Which to date still hasn't happened federally, but we've now seen across America, many states, you know, doing it. And I think all of it comes from that essence, you know. So that's why I'm hell bent on making sure that we get to keep it and not let corporate greed and licensures and things like that minimize what we created so long ago. Meaning we, the people, you know, entrepreneurs, the citizens of certain states or all the states, you know, those people that put, you know, there's probably a guy in every state, probably all over Florida, that held a big ass bonfire party that was this kicker, you know, and everybody in the county came and it was, you know, the greatest time or whatever. So that's the people that should have that kind of opportunity if they want it to move into this space versus somebody that's just corporate and business oriented and doesn't even know that vibration. They create a event space that's very bland and very retail and very commercial with big headliners and fat big tickets for you to pay. That's not cool. That's not the vibe. That's, you know, I want to wake up in the morning and find the other camper or the little vendor that has coffee and, you know, feel that vibe. That's kind of a Big Cloud. We provided that 2-3 day camping experience. Our last event was an indoor event, and that went off really well as well. But we didn't have the camping and things. It was a 2-day event, but that was our first time trying it inside, and it worked really well. We had enough space and flow of people to do that. So yeah, it's a lot of navigating. Currently going into the license sector. That way we don't have to worry about the gray area that we're technically working in right now, because it's gray, right? It's like we have a law that we created, and we have to operate in a gray area. Like, why? Right. So there's a license for it, and we voted for a license for it, and we'll go get that license and try and bring this feel to the community here in Michigan on the license side.
Yeah, it's a great point to keep the community aspect of this plant, keep that aspect to all different parts, whether it's an event or, just like you said, a neighborhood bonfire or something, because there are large events here. The one that we did, it was free. It was at like a farmer's market. It felt very laid back and kind of country, right? Where some of the other events are very corporate. They're 60, 70, 80 bucks, $150 for a VIP ticket. And even though it's a great time, it definitely does take away from the more community feel where you have a different mindset going into it. And it's not necessarily, when you walk by the booth that's petitioning to sign this, and it does have a different feel than, a community kind of laid back festival where everyone's just kind of commingling,
Yeah. And so much creativity created in that space. So with the music and the activism and the speeches and the things like that, people get to take something away from it too. They can have a great time and enjoy all the aspects of the festival, but also walk away with a piece of knowledge that they learned that they didn't necessarily have before. And then, so on and so forth. They get to pass that forward as well.
So Rick, I'm in Florida. The golf courses are still open. So in Michigan, you've got the Hazy Holes, Cannabis Classics. You're working on a puff and putt event. Talk to us about how you figured that this was a great way to bring attention to cannabis as well, because it's amazing. I saw your video posted recently of. I'm assuming that was an event maybe over the summer.
Yeah, that was late summer. I hold Hazy Holes. It was about I guess it's in its fourth year this year. In its first year, I went way back into the season because I was going to hold a town festival that I had held the previous year, but COVID hit and all those things. So I was like, well, maybe I'll do golf, and had 3 weeks to pull something together, but it was in October. And it went off great. Again, 240 golfers, 54 teams, 36 industry sponsored holes, and then each sponsored hole has the option for the people to set up a booth and a tent at the tee box. So the company can represent themselves as each golfer passes through, which they really enjoy. But October was a little bit, I had a great day and it worked that year, but it was a little bit late in the season, so I backed it up into September. So yeah, it's a great networking opportunity. I've always enjoyed golf. It's a leisure sport that if you golf, you already know that you go far enough away from the clubhouse and you fire one up, because you're golfing. So ever since I was a teenager, we'd go burn one and go play some golf. It wasn't a big drinking thing for me. But at the same time, the networking in business that's done on a golf course goes all the way up to political things, right? So I was like, well, that's what needs to be done. And I just had to find a golf course, and I was lucky to find one locally that is a beautiful golf course it's Indian Lake Hills in Eau Claire, Michigan. And they were wide open to it. They said, take this and see what you want to do with it. So I was able to get, I'd say most of our local dispensaries have been involved now one way or another. I've been able to get Darren McCarty from the Red Wings out and play. Calvin Johnson owns the Megatron from the Detroit Lions. He owns a dispensary called Primitive, and he's been involved. I've had Rob Deere, who's also a baseball player, involved. So I've tried to bring a celebrity aspect to each year, kind of help draw people, because it's exciting to go play golf, get a cool gift bag of things, and then meet all these cannabis oriented people who are also giving things out. And then, legendary baseball player or whoever, right? So I've been lucky and blessed that most of those people seem to be in line with the idea too. Last year, Hazy Holes was able to hold a fundraiser campaign for our Attorney General, and that was pretty remarkable in itself. It was just a cannabis golf outing holding a fundraiser for an Attorney General of the state. I was really excited about that. I raised about $6,000 for the Attorney General, and she was reelected. And I pushed for her for various reasons. I don't always line up with every politician that I work with in their views across the board, right? But I focus on the cannabis one. So I may not completely line up with somebody on some other issue, but if it's on cannabis and we line up, that's how I'm getting things done right now. So in our Attorney General's case, she has verbally said numerous times that she will never not prosecute any non-violent cannabis crime. Yeah, so by her doing that, it's really minimized the prosecutors across the state that would continue the prosecution of people in their counties and districts, and hopefully focus that prosecution and investigation on other crimes in the area. I feel like that's been a great thing for us as caregivers, because again, as a caregiver, we're held up on a positive plateau amongst our community, but that doesn't mean you get outside of our community and we're held up here. You get into those sectors of certain deep red sectors of the state, and they're not with it. They're appalled by you. They still see you as a horrible person and cannot believe that the state allows you to do what you do. So with that kind of mindset, you can only assume that prosecutors of that county and sheriffs and things like that would be even more oppressive, and they were for a while. But since she's been in office, that's been tamed down significantly. They're taking a different approach to things, and like I said, hopefully diverting that to bigger issues. You know, we got a tons of issues in the state of Michigan for various crimes that matter. Cannabis doesn't.
Yeah. Well, Rick, it's always awesome talking to you and gleaning some information, figuring out how you do what you do and going about it. Please let everybody know where they can find more of you and the best place that they can follow you.
Yeah, I'm on Mr Fungi _420 on Instagram, and then I'm just Rick Anstiss and or Mr Fungi on Facebook. Michigan Weedsters as well. Follow us if you want some insight. If you're not from the state of Michigan, you're kind of looking for some political views on things and maybe some angles to take. You might see something there that can help. And just watching our fight might help other people navigate theirs. So yeah, and then I have a book coming out with Dr. Bridget Williams called Courage in Cannabis. I'll be an author in that. It'll be out in spring. And that's an excellent book, bestseller. It's a 6-book series, and this is the 2nd book. So it's basically a chicken soup for the soul kind of collective of people's stories. So I was lucky enough to be asked to be in it.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Thanks for coming on the show. You're definitely an inspiration to the community, not just in Michigan, but everywhere that weed needs to be legal. You're a walking testament as to how things can get done. So thank you for being out there and doing what you do.
Well, thank you very much. That's very kind. And I'll keep pushing and inspiring everybody else to do the same. I see a lot of people around me stepping up, and I think that's great. So
awesome. And if you like content like this, make sure you go down and smash the like button for my man Rick, and make sure you subscribe to Dro TV, because that's how we get great guests like Rick here. And that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Rick, thank you again.
Thank you, Joe TV. Appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode on Dro TV. If you want to support us here at the channel, you can check out our brand new cannabis line of apparel. We have all high from all 50 states. I'm high from Florida, but you can go and be high from whatever state you are in white or black, a tank top, a hoodie, women's, men's. We've got all sizes for you. We do a lot of stuff for free here. For you, that's how we like to do it. So if you can show us any kind of support, please head over to our Linktree, click on our Etsy shop, and go get yourself some sweet gear. When you get it, tag us, post it. We want to see where you're high from, all 50 states as well as a few countries, because we are worldwide, baby. Peace and love. Thank you.